Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this week's webinar, Targeted Fundraising for Exponential Giving. We're very pleased to have a number of tremendous guests, and we're happy to have all of you joining us today. My name is Chris Bechtel. I'll be your host today. A couple of housekeeping notes. As you will see, there's a chat on your left side of your screen. So as we go through this, feel free to type us any questions that you might have. We will also be sending out a link to listen to the recording along with the slides. So in case you missed anything or you'd like to share anything with your colleagues, you'll be able to do so. So today we've got some great speakers lined up. We have Marc Bonner, who's the Development Director at the Boy Scouts of America, Long Beach Area Council. We have Michele Zanzonico, who's the Director of Annual Support at the United States Equestrian Team Foundation. We have Nate Yokers, who's the Financial Officer at 2 Feet Project, and our very own Jeremy Koenig, who's the Director of Marketing at MobileCause. So we're pleased to have these great guests, and we're going to go through our presentation. We'll leave about 15 minutes at the end of the webinar for questions, as I mentioned. So, as you're going through and you're listening to things and questions come up, definitely feel free to type your questions into the chat. We're here to provide as much value to all of you attending and taking time out of your busy day to get the insights from our great speakers on what's worked for them. And first up, I'm going to introduce Jeremy, who's going to talk to us about best practices for targeted fundraising. So here's a little bit of a brief snapshot of our agenda. As I mentioned, Jeremy's going to be first up here, and then we're going to go through a success story that Marc's going to present to us for the Boy Scouts of America. We'll talk about the U.S. Equestrian Team success story, then 2 Feet. We'll do a brief demo of MobileCause so you can see exactly how it works and how it's worked for others. And we'll have a good 15 minutes or so for Q&A at the end. And again, for those of you just joining, we will be sending out a link to the recording and to the webinar, a presentation itself. Also, for any of you that you experience any audio issues, oftentimes we recommend dialing in by phone. So if you have any audio issues, anytime it's a little choppy or any of that kind of thing, you can feel free to switch to phone. You can do that by choosing the More option on the top of your screen and then switch to phone. And then you'll dial in by landline or cell phone, and often you'll have a much better audio experience in that way. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Jeremy. Jeremy, welcome. Thanks for joining today.
Thanks, Chris. We're really excited about today's webinar about targeted fundraising. Our goal for this entire webinar is that everyone on the call, forward-thinking nonprofit organizations, would be able to take a few things away that truly would transform their fundraising strategy to receive exponentially more donations this year. I've summarized what we at MobileCause believe to be the top 3 tips for nonprofit organizations, and I've listed them here. I'll just quickly go through them, and then we'll get right into the case studies. The first is to define your demographic. In our examples, you'll see that our case studies are targeting parents of scouts, equestrian enthusiasts, and friends and families of a loved one. What we have actually found from MobileCause data as well as independent research is that participation increases 4 to 8 times when like-minded individuals are targeted with compelling communications. I'd like to make a note here that when organizations use text messaging, email, social media, and direct mail, they're able to effectively engage different age groups. The second tip is always define your suggested donation amount. Before working at MobileCause, I actually was a professional fundraiser. And again, I personally found, and the data has backed this up in the last 5 years at MobileCause, that when you ask people to give a specific amount towards a specific goal, they give more. The data says that people donate 50% more when a specific amount is asked for, and people actually give 25% more when they believe that their gift is going to reach a goal. Another consideration is that recurring donors, so these are people that set up monthly, quarterly, or annual gifts, give twice as much annually as people that just make one-time donations. So having campaigns specifically directed towards targeting people to sign up as recurring givers are very effective. The third tip is to always define your specific end result. An example that our CEO here quotes all the time is that nonprofit organizations shouldn't try to raise donations for all the children of Africa, for example. They would be wiser, and they would raise more money if they raised money for one child or one group of children that can be impacted by the dollars. It's all about the call to action, and the more that you can personify the good that the donations will be going to, the more excitement and participation you're going to drive. The way the MobileCause numbers have panned out is that people actually give 2 to 4 times as much over time when they can consistently touch, feel, hear, or experience the end results of their gifts. We have found that this is absolutely the best way to ensure that nonprofit organizations have a consistent flow of donations from their donors, as well as a consistent flow of new donors from a new generation of giving. So with that, I will turn it back over to Chris, and he can announce our first speaker.
Thanks, Jeremy. Excellent. So I'd like to introduce Marc Bonner. Marc joined the Long Beach Area Council in 2008. And prior to his current position, he served the Polaris District as district executive for 6 years. He is an Eagle Scout from Troop 65. And Marc holds a bachelor's degree from UCLA and a master's in public administration from USC. We're excited to have you join us, Marc. Thanks for attending today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
So we'd like to, share everybody, with what sort of your immediate goals were, for this particular, obviously, the Boy Scouts of America is a very large organization, distributed organization. You have a lot going on. And, I guess we'd like to learn a little bit about, for this particular program, what was the main sort of objectives when you set out to make this happen?
Sure. So there's 2 numbers that we wanted to hit. Number one was we wanted to raise $200,000 to support our programs here in the greater Long Beach area. So just to be specific about that, our area here is greater Long Beach. The second goal is through MobileCause, I had in mind to start off to raise $10,000.
So that was your initial goal. And from there, I guess what happened? Tell us, what transpired after that?
Sure. So this all got started in January of this year when we did a live event. And actually, we signed on with MobileCause 2 days before. So it's quite extraordinary that we got this up and running. Everything synced together. And on our kickoff event, we had about 80 folks in attendance. Out of those 80 people, we had about 60 who used their phones to pledge in donations, and that totaled over $7,000 just in the first 30 minutes of doing this. Now, one lesson learned would be that to caution folks that these are live pledges, and not all of the $7,000 was realized in the end because a lot of people were testing it out. But in reality, we did capture about $3,000 of those dollars.
And that was kind of the initial program, right? And now,
right.
And beyond that, right, then you kind of embarked on, sort of a bigger program that was kind of targeted at a specific, program. Is that right? You were trying to do some improvements to one of the camps. Is that right?
That's right. So, the people that we're trying to raise money from are family and friends of Scouts, as you can see on the slide there. A second way that we used this online giving was specifically above and beyond this $200,000. We embarked on a capital campaign, which in just the last 2 weeks, we've raised over $2,000 from people giving online.
And, if you were to say, so, I think one of the things that people are interested in is, how are you sort of promoting this, right? Like, in terms of, what channels of communications, how are you reaching out to people to promote this particular campaign?
Well, I would say that our communication strategy was really one of our strong points. So I'm glad you asked about that, Chris. First of all, we did newsletters, right? So I believe there's another slide here that may have an example of two different newsletters that we did. And one goes out to our mainstream audience. The other is targeted for major donors. So you can see two examples here on your screen. And we gave them a little screenshot of what it would look like for them to give to us on their phone. Another example would be we did, direct mail appeals. And at the bottom of our direct mail appeals, we reminded them that they could give online, they could text to give, and then we did weekly email reminders. We posted on all of our social media, and then we included directions on how to give to us on our website. So from our different newsletters to weekly reminders, social media, all of that we really streamlined and made it intentionally easy for people to give.
And I guess, it's like sort of back to some of Jeremy's points in the previous slides. Did you target any of this? So this is obviously annual giving, right? And, it's sort of in your communications, did you tie sort of like what that annual giving goes to and what people are contributing to by pledging?
We did, yeah. In fact, it's in very small print on the right-hand side of the blue article there. And what we did was we really broke it down to explain, for parents of scouts, they may have paid dues already. So haven't I paid my dues already? And then we go on to explain what their charitable donations do to help the organization. For instance, buy new equipment. Well, their dues, and many of your organizations may have dues, don't necessarily fund equipment. So we would give them examples, concrete examples of this is how we're improving programs for your kid.
Wonderful. And then, I think the other piece of it is just, for everyone listening, like in terms of, did you see any sort of like impact of, having this now mobile option, this easy way to give versus, the previous method? I mean, previously, how were people giving?
Sure, we absolutely. And that was really the feature that took us over the top and really launched us into what I call, the 2000s. We've been wanting to get here for a long time. And the reality is that a lot of our parents of scouts are in their 30s. And we serve generations after generations, four or five generations. So making it easier for the younger generation to give, the reality is that, as Jeremy was quoting statistics, people don't carry their checkbooks. And when we would go to meetings, this was our old model, we would ask people to give to the organization, but because they weren't prepared, number two, they didn't have their checkbooks, number three, they may not know what we were doing, the ability for them to give on their phones, to give online, any time of the day, and make it very, very easy so in a couple of keystrokes, they can give, just really made it a no-brainer for people to be able to give to us without barriers.
Right. Fantastic. And so I guess did you experience any, organizationally, any concerns about, well, hey, this is a new thing, like how is this going to work? Or, how did you sort of get, organizational buy-in, so to speak?
Yeah, we really packaged it as entering into a new era. And there was a lot of enthusiasm, I would say. There wasn't a lot of hesitancy or reluctance. I personally led that charge. And there was a lot of enthusiasm from our board. And speaking of younger generations, our board was not the younger generation, and they saw the value in this, in being able to reach new people, and I think it's done that.
And so, so I guess, would you say that's sort of the biggest value in being able to do it? If you had to sum that up, like in terms of what, felt exciting to everyone about, this new way of fundraising, what would you say are sort of the key aspects that make it exciting and make it, valuable to the organization?
I think the ability to give anywhere at any time and any amount as opposed to carrier build, that's not just $5 and $10 donations. We've received up to $2,000 I believe is our largest gift from one single person. And then just the live event itself, when we raised those thousands of dollars, people see their name live. And there was a lot of excitement from people texting in. And there's an example of the thermometer on the screen there. People could type in their names with their donation and see the thermometer rise and ideally hit your goal on that one day.
Right. Fantastic. And so I guess, coming up, what's next? Where do you see all of this going? Either for you, the organization, or overall for giving in general?
For us, I would say two things. Number one is that we're going to be launching into special events and really using the online forums and texting option to sign up for events, but not only sign up for events, pay their registration and capture their RSVP. So both of those in one. I'm very excited to launch that this fall. And then number two is just laying the groundwork for our 2016 campaign, our annual campaign, and really brainstorming what our lessons learned were, redo our forms, just touch them up, and really prepare our team for a successful 2016 campaign.
And I guess how many people did this really take? Is this like for you to actually deploy this? Is this something you see as like only a big organization type of thing, or what kind of resources were involved in actually doing all of this?
The reality was not many. I led the charge, but we're a small office. I mean, a big organization, but small staff. We rely on volunteers. So in reality, it may have been 3 or 4 people aside from me helping me do this. But it was very, from my experience, very, very easy to implement, to design, and it was very successful.
And now, based on sort of, I guess, final question, all of this, like, what, do you have any sort of final thoughts or recommendations for everybody listening, in terms of like, what you learned and, what you might, sort of recommend to everybody who's kind of considering adding this as a component to their giving programs?
I do. I would say there's 3 things. And the first, well, maybe all 3, in fact, echo what Jeremy was saying earlier on those 3 points. But for me, the 3 would be, number 1, make it easy. Make it easy for people to give. Like I mentioned earlier, the data is clear that people are giving online. They're using their phones. So just make it easy for your audience. Number 2 would be to streamline the ways to give. For instance, you can see on the screen here, our website, our mobile option, our newsletters, they have a consistent brand. It's all about branding so that all your materials look alike. And number 3 is break it down. We have found just ourselves internally an increase in monthly giving. And we did that by breaking down annual amounts. So instead of asking for someone, for $120 a year, we asked if they could do $10 a month. And we saw a big increase in overall donations because people are willing to give $10 a month, not necessarily $120 a year.
Wonderful. Yeah, fantastic. Well, great, Marc. Thank you so much for the insight. And again, everybody, I know there's a couple of questions come in, and we'll definitely be demonstrating some of these answers for you, and we'll leave, again, some additional time for Marc. If you all have questions, definitely please do submit them to chat. And we'll route those questions to Marc. Again, thanks so much, Marc. And I'm going to transition to our next success story, which is Michele Zanzonico, who is the director at United States Equestrian Team. And Michele is based in the greater New York area and has been extremely active with the equestrian community there, along with her husband. And she has been with the USET since 1985. Welcome, Michele. Thanks for joining today.
Hi, Chris. Thank you.
So we'd love to hear a little bit about, I think Michele has, some great story, in this particular example. And so maybe you could tell us a little bit about, how this particular program started and, what your challenges were and what was the initial goal.
Well, the MobileCause campaign started because one of our coaches was going to have a benefit to raise money for our teams to get to the Olympic Games. And he wanted to base the benefit on America's Got Talent, except his benefit was America's Equestrians Got Talent. So he wanted people to be able to vote. And I after some research, there are some apps out there that allow people to vote, but he wanted to be able to raise money on the voting. So we thought of MobileCause, and could we adapt it to allow us to take donations for the votes, which we did. Adrienne at MobileCause was a tremendous help to us. We created 13 short codes for the contestants that were participating. He actually held auditions prior to the event. There were 12 weeks of auditions, and a finalist was selected each week, and then there was a wild card. So we had a short code for every contestant. And then we set a goal of about $1,000 per short code, and voting was $5 per vote with no limit on the voting. So you could vote as many times as you want, or you could vote once, you could vote 10 times and pay $50 at one time rather than voting individually, or you could vote for, multiple contestants. And it was a tremendous success, far greater than we anticipated.
And so I guess, based on that, it sounds like, so to everyone listening, is that you had this initial challenge and you were trying to figure out, well, how could this possibly work? And, ultimately it sounds like, the idea of sort of thinking outside the box, and sort of kind of going into the unknown ended up with, sort of a 3-time return on what you thought was going to be the case.
Exactly.
And so what, I guess what would you say to people sort of listening to, what's your sort of recommendation on when they're looking to embark on either supporting somebody that comes within the organization with an idea or something new? Like what, how would you kind of recommend people go ahead with those types of things?
Well, I think you really have to consider your own individual organization. I know for us, we raise money to support high-performance equestrian programs. So we're supporting the athletes to get to the Olympic Games, World Equestrian Games, Pan American Games, competitions like that. And some techniques don't necessarily work for us. So I think you have to think outside of the box, think what will work for your individual organization, and see if you can adapt these things to fit. And this was a perfect example of that. It's not your typical text to give. We have tried that at a couple of events, and it didn't work very well for us, while this worked, obviously a 3 times the return we were looking for. So I think don't be pigeonholed based on what other groups are doing. Really look at your organization and see how you can apply it to make it work for you.
And kind of per Jeremy's points earlier, did you find that, having this as being a very clear benefit, in the sense of this was about one particular part of the team, right? This was the dressage, right? And then having the benefit of giving being we're getting these athletes to the Olympics. Did you find that also was a key component of driving the support?
I think it was very, very well publicized across all channels. We were doing it ourselves. The coach who was organizing it was also doing it. So it was very well publicized. And I think, a part of it was that people were voting, and wanted their particular person to win. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they knew that all of that money was going to support the Olympic teams. That's why everyone was there.
Right. And tell us a little bit about, the multi-channel marketing and the fact that I think people, because this was a live event, and I think this is an interesting piece of it, but it was also streamed live, right? There were people that could watch the event and they weren't there. Is that right?
myself included. I was not at the event, and I believe Adrienne from MobileCause was streaming it as well. So yes, it was being streamed live. The instructions were included there. We also sent, prior to that, 3 text messages via MobileCause, 5 days before the event, then 2 days, and then the day of, just reminding them. We sent out, there were press releases that went out. It was marketed on social media and via email. So we tried to cover every single channel available to us. And, I mean, it was a tremendous success. The event itself raised over $350,000, $38,000 of which was from MobileCause.
Wonderful. And now what would you say, because I'm sure, again, in terms of like the makeup of your donors, Marc had talked about some of, a lot of his donors maybe in their 30s and that type of thing. How about, your donor base, in terms of like, tech savviness? Like what would you say to those out there that may be thinking, I don't know, are my donors really tech savvy enough to be handling this? Like what's sort of your take on that?
Well, I think that for the USET Foundation, we do have a little bit older demographic, but we are trying, that's only going to last for so long. Those people are going to phase out, and you always have younger people coming up. I mean, obviously, young people are riding. We have young athletes on our team, and so we want to reach those people. But I go back again to don't be pigeonholed. The text to give hasn't worked well for us. This did. The next thing we want to do, and we're going to do it around Giving Tuesday, is peer-to-peer. We're going to reach out to those younger athletes and say, listen, can you help us? Will you be willing to, work on a campaign with us and invite your friends, and try to reach that younger demographic and bring them in. So I think you've got to pay attention to the ones that are coming up and reaching out to them. And this is a good way to reach out to them, even if you don't feel like your current constituency is that tech savvy. You can start to introduce them to it and also use it as a way to bring new people in.
Fantastic point, and I think we've seen that a lot, which is wonderful. Well, terrific. Thank you so much, Michele, for your insight. We're going to keep moving along because we've got a lot of good content coming. And again, we'll save some time. So if you have specific questions for Michele and what her thoughts are and what else she experienced, please definitely type them into chat, and we'll endeavor to get to them. So now I'd like to move on and to introduce our next speaker, Nate Yokers. Nate is the founding member of 2 Feet Project and was part of the first team that traveled to Kenya in 2011. Nate graduated from Northwest University after spending a number of years working in the financial industry. He made a complete career change and started mentoring and coaching young people for a number of nonprofit and for-profit organizations. So, Nate, we're happy to have you here today, and we'd love to learn more about, 2 Feet, and I think it's a really unique example, or at least a very, impactful example. So tell us a little bit about, how this sort of started off and what was the inspiration, and, give us a little background here.
Yeah, most definitely, Chris. Thank you so much for having me here, and I'm excited to be able to kind of share a little bit about our experience and more with 2 Feet Project. So we were started, like you said, in 2011, and, we talked about earlier, a small nonprofit. We're based here in Seattle, Washington, but our operations are in Nakuru, Kenya, which is a city about an hour outside of Nairobi. And our mission is to empower vulnerable youth to impact their communities by standing on their own 2 feet. And we do that a number of different ways. We have sports, education, health, and sustainability as kind of our 4 pillars. And then we come around to try to surround the youth with a holistic, well-rounded approach to helping them kind of with the issues that they face on a day-to-day basis, which are definitely different than what we do, kind of faced in the United States and other Western world. So But yes, to kind of transition from there, the Britain Memorial Fund, and this is kind of where the success story, being that we are a small nonprofit, obviously our goal when we raise money is smaller than some of the other organizations, but definitely it's kind of a direction that we need to go, and it's a big deal for us and helps our program. On May 7th of 2014, we had a family who has been great sponsors of ours and have donated to the organization and been closely involved. They lost a child at birth, and her name was Britton. And so when that took place, during the grief and sadness and kind of during that initial time, they reached out to us and said we would love to continue her legacy and be able to create a fund that people could donate in her honor. And so we did that last year, and we had people donate to it. And it was very successful. People really got behind it and were very giving towards that. So as an organization, it was very honoring to experience that. Now, fast forward a year later, and it was the 1-year anniversary, so the first birthday for Britain, and they wanted to have it be a celebration and wanted it to be something that people could come and celebrate around her life. And so they did a huge backyard barbecue and had all kinds of fun games and everything that people could come and be a part of. And so they came for that, and people there were excited to be able to not only celebrate but also to give to the Britain Memorial Fund, and which specifically goes to educate young girls in Kenya, so to provide scholarships and different things for their education directly. So that's kind of a little snapshot of what went on and what took place.
Wonderful. And, and I guess, based on all of this, what would you say to those that are, really small organizations and they're maybe just wondering, is it worth it? Does it take a lot of time for me to, put this together? And even though I'm going, I have a small goal, what would you say to the, those that are kind of in the similar position?
Right. That's a great
question, Chris. And so for us, it was because we are a small organization. Whenever we have to invest into something like MobileCause or in something that is a new giving platform, it is a big deal because we aren't dealing with a large amount of money to work with for those things. And so there were a lot of meetings with our board to decide if this was something that would be successful or something that we wanted to reach out and try. And what we found is the initial investment that needs to be made, though it could be substantial for a small organization, it has been, greatly paid for itself in the different advantages that we've gotten from it. Mainly, like Marc was talking about in his presentation, our number one thing is to figure out how to make a donation easy. And the way we can do that is through having, the text to donate. A text, in this example, we had Britain, who was the keyword, and we'd have people text Britain to 41444. And so when they did that, it was very easy for them to be right there and give right in the moment. And as we know as nonprofits, you have a small window of time from when a potential donor feels impacted and compelled to give. You have to take advantage of that. So making sure that our giving page online was very easy and for people to get on and give, and looks really clean. The ability to put pictures in there and to have things that are very engaging. It has been a big investment for us, but it's been well worth it.
And in terms of marketing this event, I mean, it looks like so obviously it looks like you use both sort of online and offline channels, correct? So tell us a little bit about sort of the, even though this was a very targeted, marketing program, how did this get marketed?
Yes.
So because it was a memorial fund and it deals with such a, emotional and personal situation, we really wanted to make sure that we honored the family and this, especially the parents, and how we approached this. And so we were in close talks with them just about what they were comfortable with, and they really wanted to keep it to Facebook. They wanted to kind of keep it on Facebook and word of mouth, and so they were in charge of kind of sending emails to people and gathering information there, and then we were able to kind of promote it a little bit on Facebook. But again, because it's the first anniversary, we really held back to, kind of making it feel like we were trying to monetize, what was a tragedy. And so now moving forward, what we really want to do is start utilizing different things like the crowdfunding pages and really trying to get some different things going into the next event, which would be, next year's event, and really allow people to take ownership of it and to do a much better job of spreading the word and having kind of a multifaceted way of communicating the fund and what it does and why it's there.
And so, I guess, tell us a little bit more about, what, based on this sort of success, like what's your sort of future plans? Like, where do you go from here?
Yes.
So going into the next year's event, what we found as just an organization, we really need to find champions on the inside. So we need to find people other than Stephen and myself. So Stephen Ishmael is the co-founder, and he and I are the two employees of 2 Feet Project. So with only 2 of us being full-time, we really have to find other people who can get passionate about 2 Feet and then are willing to, volunteer their time and get behind certain causes. And so in this case, finding people who are passionate about the young girls in Kenya getting an education, and not only through that, but also are passionate about the Britain Fund and making sure that we honor her and continue her legacy. So we want to do a better job of targeting those individuals who will then be more than willing to reach out to their groups and their friends and spread the word that way. And the crowdfunding pages seem like the ideal opportunity to do that. And then the other thing, we need to do a better job of showing the impact that will be made. So now that we've had this initial event, when I'll actually be traveling back over to Kenya on Thursday, and I'll be spending a few weeks there, one of the things we're going to do is really capture some of these young girls and the impact that this memorial fund has had on them. And when we can do that and take that and then show that to future donors, that's going to be the ability to capture them, show them what they can, the impact they can have on other people, and then combine that with the ability to easily give online or through text. We think that that's going to be the key going into our next event next year.
Fantastic. Well, terrific, Nate. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with all of us. And we're going to keep things rolling along because we've got just about 18 to 20 minutes, and we might go a couple minutes past the hour depending on questions. So again, we've got some good questions rolling in. Keep them coming, and we'll get to as many of them as possible. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Jeremy, who's going to give us a brief demo and show you all exactly how some of these things that we've been talking about work. Jeremy?
Great. Thanks, Chris, and thanks, speakers. I am actually very motivated by each of your testimonies. I have been at MobileCause for 5 years. I'm one of the original architects on the platform, and it's great to see a lot of the ideas, the original fundraising ideas, come to fruition in your causes, so keep it up. I'm going to just do a brief demo specifically of how fundraising campaigns work and how they are set up within the MobileCause platform. Very, very easy. They continue to get more and more simple every month. To break down the high-level components of a MobileCause fundraising campaign that you've heard from these speakers is each fundraising campaign contains these 5 things: a keyword for in-person asks, an online form for payments or non-payments, a share link for easy social media, text and email promotion, an embed code for websites, and a thermometer for live events. The first thing I want to show you is how easy it is to set up a keyword. So literally you would log into your MobileCause account, and you would select a keyword. And this keyword, again, is used for in-person donations. So volunteers, staff, at events, this keyword can be used to trigger the text message with the link to make a donation. One of the benefits of using a keyword opposed to just sending people a link is that you actually have the ability to set up automatic fulfillment reminders. So you can see here in the box on the bottom left that you can set it up so that it sends a reminder text message 1 day later, 4 days later, and then you also have the option to 8 days later. These reminder text messages significantly increase overall donations. After you set up a keyword, you're going to set up your online form. MobileCause has recently made some major advancements in the sophistication of our online forms. Specifically now, they can be set to collect a payment or a non-payment. So if you are having registrations for an event, if you're trying to sign up volunteers, or if you're trying to collect donations or collect specific campaign funds, you can do that all here through the flexibility of our online form. You can see that you can add custom sections. You can change the order of those sections. As you've seen through the examples so far, the backgrounds, the logos, the colors, the title headings, all can be changed and reordered. Amazing. You have recurring gift options. You can actually put in custom messages as well as custom images. And then finally, I want to point out that every online form can essentially be promoted in two ways. It can be promoted on your website, so you can take the embed code that you see here, and you can actually put it on your website. So people will have a seamless giving experience. If your website's not mobile responsive, or you're linking people directly from social media, we recommend using the share link. I have been sharing the long link with you in the side chat so that you can see all these examples on your screen, and notice that when you view them on a smartphone, a tablet, or a PC, they look beautiful. They function beautiful. People can actually complete donations with just a few taps or clicks. If you want to see this form on your phone, I actually set up a demo of the USET donation form. So don't worry, Michelle, these aren't going to trigger a whole bunch of pledges in your account. Go ahead and pull out your cell phone, and you can text the word USET, so a new text message to the word capital USET, and the phone number is 91999. So if you text that, you'll immediately get back a reply link to the form that you see in front of you. Or if you want to do it from your computer, you can type in this short link that I created, mcause.us/USET. After you've created your keyword and you set up your online giving form, which again just takes minutes, you have the option to set up your fundraising thermometer, which helps to create a dynamic event experience. And so I set up a mock USET example here that if you were to text into, you would see your amount and your name appear in real time and the fundraising thermometer go up. I'll give you guys that link here in a minute in the chat box. If you follow the instructions at the top, you will be able to actually see your donation in real time. What you're going to see when you first go there is you're going to see all these $35 donations, because that is the default donation that I have set for anyone who does not include an amount. Again, you can customize the goal, the header, the background, essentially all the details of the thermometer. If you want to type in the link to see the live example that I've created, just type in mcause.us/ride and then follow the instructions on the page, and you'll see your name and amount pop up as the thermometer rises. The question always gets asked on every webinar, how much does it cost? How much is a MobileCause plan? MobileCause annual plans start at $295 a month, and they include everything here you see on your screen. Online forms, which yield 38% more donations than standard generic forms. Text to donate, which has a $107 average gift size. The event thermometer, which actually has proven to increase event donations by 25%. Crowdfunding for nonprofits are actually our most popular product, which is not featured on this webinar, but is absolutely world-class and incredible for nonprofits. Mobile communication, the ability to text message all of your donors and constituents with a 99% open rate. And then finally, merchant services, full merchant services with a credit card swiper to actually collect credit card donations. All of these are included in your plan. They all can drastically and significantly increase donations and donors for your cause throughout the year. To summarize, MobileCause is a cloud-based fundraising platform for a new generation of giving. It is designed for nonprofits to acquire donors, fundraise at a lower cost, and make it easy to give. Thanks for listening. I'll turn it back over to Chris, and let's get to our questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Terrific. So we had a lot of great questions, and thanks to the speakers, who have been answering some of the specific questions in chat, which is great. And just I guess to recap a couple of things, back to Marc, what would you say to those folks that are kind of looking at, like, they're concerned about, well, we don't have enough, a big enough list, or we don't have enough, cell phone numbers, to kind of make this work. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we actually didn't pre-populate any phone numbers into MobileCause's database. Now, there is the option of doing that, but from our parent organization, we have some privacy policies that just didn't allow us to do that. But we didn't really see that as an issue. Now, our total constituents, just our membership of Scouts, is about 4,000 families. And again, we did not populate anything, yet we received thousands of dollars just by advertising and promoting, promoting the option of giving online and texting, and people willfully, voluntarily just text their information to us.
Fantastic. And so do you think then that, do people need a huge base to kind of get this kicked off? I mean, obviously, I guess what are your thoughts about that?
I don't think so. I don't think you need a base at all. I mean, you may have people in mind, but just speaking from our experience, we really didn't need a big base to start with.
Now, let's see, we got some other good questions coming in. And so for you, Michele, in terms of, previous, let's see, did you kind of, in terms of planning, in terms of, what your goal was, in terms of, how did you sort of factor in, any kind of, other additional charges, other, sort of fees, and, in terms of the overall raise, how did that kind of play into, this program, just kind of looking at the cost versus the return?
You mean on the program overall, not just for the night of that particular event?
Yeah. I guess, how would you, sort of talk to that about in terms of ROI, right? That people are sort of thinking about,
right.
There's going to be some outlay of cost versus, the return. I guess, how did you kind of, factor that into your planning and deciding whether or not to do this?
Well, for us, this is really the first full year of using MobileCause. We used it just a little bit in November and December of last year. So what we decided to do was enlist MobileCause for a year, try a couple of different things, and then evaluate the success of those things, and if we felt we could build upon that success or not going forward. So obviously the first event of this year was very successful, and based on that, we're looking at doing the peer-to-peer in conjunction with Giving Tuesday, as I said, and we will make a final determination on that after we see those results. So we're just sort of using this as a test year, so to speak. We've committed to being on board for the full year, and then we're going to evaluate.
Wonderful. And now, there were some folks that were kind of asking about in terms of reporting, funds that were raised via MobileCause. I mean, obviously, in your example, all of the funds for this particular event were raised through MobileCause. Is that right?
No.
So it wasn't so there were some funds that were raised separately. Is that right? And did you report them differently? So you have an idea of, okay, we raised X through MobileCause and Y through, our other, traditional means. Well,
for this particular event, we raised the $38,000 through MobileCause. The entire benefit, I believe, raised about $350,000, but there were ticket sales, there was a silent auction, and there was MobileCause. And internally, we know the individual totals for each of those things.
Right, terrific. And so so you reported that obviously internally and had a very clear view of what the overall impact was from MobileCause versus, the other channels and that type of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Terrific. All right, well, and here's a question, for Nate, and this is, just regarding, very tactically, like in terms of Facebook, like, obviously this was marketed, on a smaller scale. I guess any sort of insight that you could give to folks, based on your experience, using Facebook as, just even in the small, program, like, any thoughts on using Facebook and how that impacted, this program?
Yes. So with using Facebook, one of the challenges, as all of us will know, if you have an organization page, you are not able to communicate really easily and clearly with individuals. And so what you have to do in that situation is you have to have really rally people around to share and to follow up with people directly. So, just with Facebook, you can't, go and send individuals things and talk to individuals. You have to do that, have other people who have a personal account go and do that. And so some of that is just relies on you making sure you communicate that properly with your constituents and really get them to share and to follow up and to explore that and allow that to take place on Facebook.
And so is that sort of how you would recommend, what's sort of based on your experience, sort of your best practices or recommendations on how to leverage Facebook, with this sort of mobile giving?
Yes.
Yeah. So find those champions, and that was one of our key takeaways from this event. Find your champions that are really going to get behind this, and then make sure that when you are communicating with them and working with them, that you're giving them a clear set of things that need to happen, dates that things need to be shared, times, the best times to post, going through kind of all that social media stuff. But you can't expect others to have that knowledge or to do that. You really need to lay it out in a clear, easy to follow manner, and then follow up with them. So you're following up with your champions, the list of people who share things and like things on Facebook. Make sure that you're checking in with them and saying, hey, we needed this post to go out. Can you reshare it? Can you send this to some friends? Can you comment on it? And then that gets kind of the groundswell going, and then it can kind of go from there.
Right. Now, we got a couple of folks, sort of asking you about, sort of the ROI, right, based on sort of the cost of MobileCause and, the volume of raise and, how are you thinking about that? And, I think some other folks are like trying to figure out how can they get their board to approve, based on, what their ROI is. I guess maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on, sort of how you looked at that and how you might suggest to others to, kind of justify, this additional, expense and channel and fundraising.
Yes. So that was, being that we are a small organization, it was a big deal, and this was a big decision that we had to make. And how we looked at it was we took a look at the other platforms that we were currently using, and they tended to have a higher per transaction fee than MobileCause. And so we went through and took all our donations and were able to take a really in-depth look from an ROI perspective and see how much money we would be saving. And so when we put that out and looked at last year's versus projected this year, it really made sense from the standpoint of the cost basis, even though it definitely was more money up front with MobileCause. In the big picture, it actually was a wash. It came out within a couple $100 for us of either being more expensive or less expensive than our current platform. And with everything that MobileCause provides, being the crowdfunding and the text to donate and all that kind of stuff, that is not provided by the other platforms that we've used in the past. So that was kind of our big decision-making process as we looked at it from an ROI standpoint.
Wonderful. And then, the other question, too, is in terms of, we've talked about this a little bit, but for those, again, that are like a one-person, group, right? I mean, obviously it's you and your co-founder. So how did, in terms of time, like what would you say to those, like, that feel it's like, wow, I'm already overwhelmed with how much stuff I have to do. How can I add this, into my mix? What would you say to that?
The good thing that we realized with MobileCause is it's kind of as big or as in-depth as you want it to be. You can create some very simple, very easy platform things that when you sign up, you're assigned kind of a caseworker that works right alongside you to get you started and to make sure that you put things in place how you want them. And that doesn't take any time at all. That's very easy. And then it's just getting used to kind of the different things related to the reporting and different things like that, which is very simple. But like I said at the beginning, it's what you put into it. If you have a large team and you have people who can dedicate a lot of time and energy to this, you could make it as big as you want it to be. However, like for myself, with two of us, and we have a lot of other things going on, we aren't able to dedicate as much time as we'd like to. However, we can still put the limited amount of time we have into making some things that are really dynamic and really engaging for our donors.
Fantastic. Well, we've come to the top of the hour, and I'd like to bring Jeremy back in real quick just to get a couple of final comments here on how folks can get more information, as well as if any of you have additional questions for any of our speakers. I'll let our speakers, if they want to provide their contact info. Otherwise, of course, you can definitely contact MobileCause, via the phone number here that's on the screen. If you have specific questions for Marc or Michele or Nate on any of their specific, practices and what they might recommend, we're happy to connect you with them. But Jeremy, maybe you can just tell everybody a little bit, we've had a couple of questions just about, cost and next steps and some other things, and maybe you want to just give everyone just a couple of brief, comments on, how they can get more information and, that type of thing from MobileCause.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chris. As I've just been reading the thread of messages here, I just want to personally say to everyone that's on the webinar, mobile technologies make fundraising easier. Right now, you probably are very much overwhelmed with how do I continue to reach my large donors and do my direct mail and do email marketing, and now how am I going to do mobile marketing? And I'm here to tell you that mobile marketing and mobile fundraising takes a fraction of the time as those other channels because it's very easy. Your ability to send out text messages to young donors, your ability to spin up fundraising campaigns quickly and specifically will have a transformative effect on your nonprofit. And to reinforce what Nate said, the MobileCause platform is very much designed for you to go as deep and as far as you can think of going in fundraising. And we are here as a MobileCause team, and our goal is actually to put the most powerful tools in the hands of those doing the most good. And we believe that the smartphone is the most ubiquitous device for your donors of any age. And so being able to engage them in a way that makes it easy for them to give and keeps them engaged and excited about your cause is what we're here to do. And so please feel free to call the 888-661-8804 number or visit the mobilecause.com/demo link to request a solutions demo specifically for your nonprofit organizations. And the MobileCause rep that you speak to will help you pick a plan that fits best for your organization. Thank you so much for participating. I'll hand it back over to Chris. Please reach out to us with any more questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. And again, thanks to all the speakers, Marc, Michele, and Nate, for your insight and wisdom. I mean, we truly are, here trying to, educate and empower, the global community. Really, we're all doing good here, and, the more that we can help everyone, be more successful, raise more money, the more value, the more good that we're all really going to do. And that's, really what it's all about. So I would say, again, just a quick reminder, yes, we will be sending out a link to this presentation along with a recording. So if you have colleagues you want to share it with, or, if you want to re-review something, you'll be able to do so. And again, you will have, direct access to MobileCause representatives that can, answer all your questions, specific to your needs. So again, thank you all for joining us today and taking time out of your busy day. Have a wonderful day, and we will look forward to seeing you all again soon.